Hi, everybody. Darren Lynch, founder and CEO of Irish Titan here, along with Brad Gustafson from Ultra Commerce, and we're going to talk a little bit of headless commerce. Hi, Brad. How you doing today?
I'm pretty good, Darren. Thanks for having me.
Good, good. Thanks. Looking forward to the conversation. Headless is fun to talk about. It's finally here in some way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's just do some introductions real quickly, so those who are watching have a sense of who we are. I'm Darren Lynch, founder and CEO of Irish Titan. As I mentioned, I founded Irish Titan way back in 2004. We're an e-commerce agency with offices in Minneapolis and Austin, Texas. We build and grow e-commerce channels. So that means we build the e-commerce sites for our merchants and then work with them on acquisition, conversion, retention strategies. I personally have been in e-commerce since 1998, so I'm a grizzled veteran by e-commerce standards. And I think I'll leave it at that for now. I guess the only other thing I'll mention, just for fun, Irish Titan's closed only 2 days a year, St. Patrick's Day and the day after. So, Brad, why don't you share with the audience a little bit about your background, a little bit about Ultra Commerce?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm Brad Gustafson. I'm the CMO at Ultra Commerce. Also, I guess a grizzled e-commerce veteran, as you pointed out, and got my start actually as a developer, and then I've transitioned over more into the marketing role. And then Ultra Commerce, we are an e-commerce platform that has a really great offering built around our headless commerce, which we're gonna talk through a bit today. And where we specialize is companies that are fast growing and up all the way up into the sort of traditional enterprise market. And usually those companies are sort of challenged in some way. They've outgrown the platform that they're on. They've got some unique business requirements. They're growing and they're sort of looking for a new platform to help kind of take their business to the next level, and that's really where Ultra Commerce comes in. So yeah, excited to talk headless today and have a great conversation.
Great. Thanks for the rundown, Brad. I think we're planning a trilogy, if you will, out of this, and some trilogies are better than others, but we'll aim high, right?
Yeah, exactly.
With our expectations for how we'll cover headless in these 3 different parts. We're going to start with, I guess, a bit of a level set on headless, what it is, the high level benefits, a little bit more of the business discussion around headless, because we've talked about it for a long time in the industry. I think that it started with a concept that meant many things to many people. I think that it's starting to turn from pros to practice. It still probably means many things to many people, but why don't we start there? Brad, from your perspective, how would you define headless? What is it?
Yeah, great question. I think that's certainly a good place to start. I think from our perspective, the way that we like to think about headless commerce is really the idea that commerce and sort of the web and what you think about with e-commerce traditionally, which is like the shopping cart, buy, add to cart, checkout, that really simple process has just expanded, right, considerably, especially in the last 3, 4, 5 years, right? The expectation for what a commerce platform needs to deliver has grown significantly. There's mobile apps now. There's marketplaces, places where you're taking orders all over the place. You've got a retail store. You've got people on the trade show floor. So commerce is happening in all these different places, and all of that, in an ideal world, you want filtering back into your commerce platform as a hub. So there's that expectation that the commerce platform needs to handle all of that. And on the flip side, you also have the sort of the traditional challenge where e-commerce platforms back in the day were all in one, right? They're going to give you your layout. They're going to give you your front end. They're going to say this is what we'll do for you. We'll do it all, but that's it. That's the scope.
Sort of monolithic.
And where that starts to kind of fall apart is when the marketing team starts to say, well, we want to do this design, or we want to have this layout, and the platform says, well, you can't quite do that. You got to be in this box of what's available from a layout standpoint, from a front end standpoint, from a storefront perspective. And then you may also have now these other divisions that say, well, we want to have a mobile app. and that's going to take orders, and we're going to do all these other things that I was just mentioning. And so what you need is, at the end of the day, is a platform that's sort of agnostic to the storefront. No matter where the order is happening, where the transaction is happening, that can all sort of filter in. And so what we've seen is that as the needs for where commerce is going to have to happen have expanded, the level of flexibility that people need and demand to support that from a business standpoint has to expand as well. And that's really where headless comes in. It's much more than just, depending on the sort of the definition that you see, it's much more than just the disconnecting the front end and the commerce piece. It's all about really supporting the business and the sort of transaction wherever that is. And we like to talk about it. It's more than just checkout all the time when we're out talking to people in the community, because success may not mean that you have a live web storefront. It may mean that you have customer data that you're feeding from your portal out to, or from your storefront out to your portal, or a number of different ways of thinking about it. So we say headless commerce is more than just checkout. It's more to kind of have a broad definition for what that is. And I'm sure you've seen when you're talking to your clients as well, that it's the expectation that they have is more than just a simple store. There's lots of other things that they have to consider that factor into what you're going to help them build.
Right. Yeah. I think that it is more than separating the front end from the cart and the checkout.
Yeah.
But I would say I think that's a good way for people who don't really understand what it is, or if they feel like they're being told different definitions. I think that's a good core of it, right?
Yeah.
Like
that's a good starting point.
Yeah, it really is, because I think one example of it is maybe a merchant who's very brand intensive and needs really strong content on the site that might be the sort of content that's not as easy to render in a traditional e-commerce platform, right? And then they need, of course, the product detail pages to check out all of the traditional cart functionality. That's one example. Another that I think is going to emerge over the next few years is voice, right? Like we all know that you can order via voice, in Amazon with your Echo and that sort of thing. But I think that voice is one of those areas that's still a little bit unexplored for the broader e-commerce community. And if you separate someone's voice technology from processing the transaction and all that, that's an example of headless too, right? So separating those, I think, is a good way for people to wrap their heads around it. Why? So I guess I touched on this, but as the industry expert, what would be some of the points you would make as to why to choose headless over traditional?
Yeah, it really comes down to two different things. I think one is, what we see a lot is that the marketing team, the design team has let's say a storefront, a design layout, like you referenced it already, really content heavy, that they really like. They have no problem with the CMS that they're on, with the content structure, with the tools that they're using. They're all in. They like it. They've got technical capabilities there. They're good to go. But the minute that sort of commerce comes into it, the minute someone's hitting add to cart, they're less happy there, right? Or there's certain promotions they want to run, or product catalog, or types of products they want to sell that they just can't. And usually, traditionally, they've sort of been presented with the idea of, okay, well, cool, we can upgrade your commerce, but you got to get rid of everything else, right? You got to start from scratch. So for us, I think there's a great opportunity to keep that content piece and just replace the commerce and get a new commerce platform in there. So you're keeping the pieces you like, and you're replacing the pieces that you don't. And you end up with a really great solution that's going to solve both needs at the end of the day. Great content, great commerce, connect them together. And as long as that connection, as long as the commerce platform is really geared to do that, that link between or with the content system, you're good to go. And then the other piece to that as well is the idea of looking at sort of again, when we think about sort of a replatforming, I think what scares off a lot of businesses from migrating is just the cost, right? Of how you go in and you start to say, well, we're gonna have to do everything all at once. So the idea that you can look at doing a phased approach to it, and sort of offset some of that cost over time and tackle it in phases, is a great way to go. If someone says, I don't like my site, I don't like my storefronts, I don't like the content that they don't like anything, they may be looking at it and thinking, well, to do everything, it's going to be just a huge number. Can I tackle this in steps? Maybe start with the commerce side of things, get a new e-commerce platform in place, and then do the content later, and have lots of options and really make decisions based on what the right platform is for you and your business, for where you are today and where you want to grow, rather than have it be sort of forced upon you from that aspect. So those are the two sort of scenarios that we see where going the headless route can be a really great fit for a business that's sort of outgrown or has some trouble with the platforms they're on now.
Are there some industries that you feel headless is better suited for?
Yeah, I think where we've typically seen some really good success or really great implementations of headless, certainly around retail, where brand and content is really heavy. There's a large investment that needs to be made there. Absolutely, and it's sort of the typical definition of how you define headless, where there's a really solid CMS in place. We've also seen a lot of interest, more so on the B2B side, when there are companies that are looking to do, kind of go beyond the traditional B2B type of environment, where they want to sell, they're selling to their customers, their dealers, their reps, but they're looking at other opportunities as well, where they might want to spin up maybe a microsite for a specific vertical they're going after, or they're looking to feed product data off to another storefront in some way. So yeah, there's lots of different, I think, approaches that can make sense depending on really where the business is looking to sort of invest long term, and has some complexity there that headless tends to support really well.
So let's wrap up with this quick question, or maybe theme if perhaps is more appropriate. But what are some of the pitfalls you've seen with headless to date? Do you have some of those that you can share?
Yeah, great question. I think where that comes, just like with any sort of e-commerce project in general, looking at a re-platform, looking at sort of headed down that direction, is there's still going to be some integration required between various business systems. So if the content management system, let's say, isn't sort of open, ready to integrate with the commerce side, that hurts. Or if there's an expectation to integrate with a back office, with an ERP or some sort of inventory system, and that's not necessarily open, that's going to cause some issues. I think the sort of the project team mix can be a little bit different sometimes depending on the scope. It's really helpful to have internal expertise with those systems that need to integrate in. So if someone at Irish Titan calls up a client and says, hey, we're looking to integrate with the ERP and we have some questions, if your client doesn't know who to go to, right, for that kind of feedback and sort of a best practice, and here's what you should do, that can be challenging. So a lot of it's just getting the team right to sort of scope that out, and then making sure the project plan's in place so that there's enough time focused on the integrations between the various systems, so that everyone knows who to go to for expertise sort of along the way. That certainly helps, I think, get the project moving and avoid those sort of roadblocks where one system in the map can't get exactly what it wants when it needs it. So the more you can do to kind of avoid that, I think it sets you up really well. Good.
I think there are some great takeaways in there, and we'll wrap up this first segment on that note. I think when we think of trilogies, let's aim for the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy, right? This was like Batman Begins, so Headless begins. Yeah. Next is Dark Knight, Headless Knight, and I guess Headless Knight Rises to wrap this up. So that's a quality we're aiming for.
Exactly. I like it.
All right. Well, we'll be talking to you soon. Thanks for the time today, Brad, and I look forward to the next conversation. Okay.
Sounds great. Thanks a lot, Darren.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Tune back for more here in the future. You'll be seeing it on social and on the marketing channels. Thanks a lot.